Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today, we're looking into some pretty challenging themes from Indian society.
That's right. We're working from a specific, quite hard-hitting podcast script excerpt that was shared with us.
And yeah, it doesn't pull any punches. It covers some uncomfortable stuff highlighted in the material.
We'll be focusing on what the script itself presents. Three main things, really.
Okay, what are they?
Well, first, this issue of bias around skin color, then the problem of rape, and finally, how India apparently ranks in some global surveys on racism.
Got it. So our goal here is to basically unpack what's in this script excerpt, pull out the key information, the main insights, based just on this material.
Exactly. And acknowledging these are sensitive topics, of course, we're here to understand the script's perspective.
Okay, let's dive right in then. First up, what the script terms dark skin hate. And it talks about colorism, portraying it as, well, almost an obsession.
And it connects us straight away to things you can see in popular culture, like Bollywood.
Right. What does it say about Bollywood?
It brings up a study, says it's from 2021, called The Dark Side of Bollywood. Apparently it found something like 90% of lead actors are fair-skinned.
90%. Wow. That definitely makes you think about, media representation and maybe the messages being sent out.
Yeah, for sure. And it's not just movies. The script also talks about the marriage market.
Ah, yes. The matrimonial ads.
Exactly. It mentions how often you see terms like wheatish complexion. The script presents this as, well, a kind of code.
Code for not dark-skinned.
Pretty much, yeah. Suggesting a clear preference there.
The script also tries to connect this to social structures, doesn't it?
It does. It references a UN report, reportedly from 2020, that apparently links darker skin with lower castes.
So the implication is that it's not just about looks. It might be tangled up with older social hierarchies.
That seems to be the connection the script is drawing, yes.
Yeah.
Suggesting deeper roots to this bias.
And to show the impact on people, there was a survey mentioned.
Right. A Dove survey from 2022, according to the script. It apparently found that 60% of Indian women would think about bleaching their skin.
60%, just to feel acceptable. That really hits home, the kind of pressure it suggests.
It absolutely does. It raises big questions about the psychological side of these societal biases,
Okay, let's shift gears to the next topic the script tackles. The issue of rape. The numbers presented are quite stark.
They are. The script cites figures, supposedly from the NCRB in 2022. It states an average of 89 women raped daily.
Which works out to, what was it, 1 every 16 minutes?
Roughly, yeah. And the script makes a point of saying these are just the reported cases.
So the real number could be higher.
That's the implication, yes. Likely much higher.
The script then mentions some specific cases that got a lot of attention. Nirhaya, Katua, Uno.
Cases that sparked huge protests. But the script's view is quite direct.
What does it say?
It basically asserts that despite all the outrage, there's been no real change. That's the phrase used.
Yeah, and it also touches on victim blaming.
Yeah, disturbingly it does. It mentions alleged quotes, things like politicians saying, well, she was out late.
That kind of talk is just, it shifts the blame, right, away from the perpetrator.
Exactly. And it can really discourage people from coming forward, seeking justice. It's incredibly damaging.
Then there's the justice system itself. The conviction rates aren't great, according to the script.
No, they're not. It points to NCRB data again, saying only about 27% of reported cases actually end in a conviction.
Less than a third. That raises serious questions about how effective the system is.
It certainly does. And the script adds another layer. It mentions a news anchor reporting on alleged cases where convicted rapists were released early.
For good behavior.
That's what the script alleges, yeah.
Right.
If that's happening, it could really damage public confidence.
Definitely. Okay, the third major area in this script excerpt, this claim about India being the most racist country, where does that come from?
According to the script, that claim is attributed to something called the World Values Survey from 2023.
Global rankings like that can be tricky, though, can't they? Depends on how they measure things.
Absolutely. They can be complex. But the script doesn't just leave it there. It gives specific examples within India to back this up.
Like what?
Well, it mentions attacks on Africans in Delhi, specifically mob beatings in Greater Noida, citing BBC from 2023.
Okay.
And also discrimination against people from Northeast India, facing slurs, being told to go back to China, that kind of thing.
Right, I see.
And again, it links back to caste. It brings up manual scavenging, saying it's still done mainly by Dalits, who are often described as lower caste and darker skinned.
So it's arguing these different forms of discrimination are intertwined.
That seems to be the point, yeah. And there's a specific story included, too.
What story is that?
The script recounts an incident where an African student was allegedly called Kala, meaning black, and then beaten up.
That's awful. It really personalizes the issue.
It does. And the script makes this broader point that racism isn't just external. It exists right there in its streets, homes, and mirrors, as it puts it.
A call for introspection, basically.
I like it.
But the script doesn't just leave it all as negative, right? It shifts a bit towards the end.
It does, yeah. The tone changes slightly, mentions a hopeful shift, or potential solutions at least.
What kind of things does it highlight?
Well, it points to things like the Dark is Beautiful campaigns, positive movements trying to challenge that color bias we talked about.
Okay, that's constructive.
And it also mentions, from the perspective in the script, that instances where rapists receive the death penalty are seen as a sign of progress, or at least accountability. And it flags anti-caste rallies as another form of, activism pushing back against those historical inequalities.
So acknowledging the problems, but also the efforts to address them.
Exactly. And the script concludes with a pretty clear statement. That real change, meaningful change, has to start with acknowledging these problems honestly, looking them square in the face.
Makes sense. You can't fix what you don't acknowledge.
Precisely.
Yeah.
Which kind of leads us to a final thought for our listeners, drawing from all this.
Go ahead.
When you hear about these issues presented in the script, the colorism, the violence, the discrimination, it's worth thinking about how complex it all is. You've got history, social structures, individual attitudes, all tangled up. So the thought to maybe reflect on is, how do all these pieces fit together? How do they reinforce each other? Not just maybe in India based on the script, but potentially in any society dealing with similar deep-rooted problems. And crucially, what does genuine change actually look like in that kind of complex picture?